transitioning from seeing a demo to actually using a control in the real world can be tricky. In this video, we're going to be looking at how to set up the PDF Viewer control from Syncfusion in a new project without using the samples. We'll also see how to properly add our licensing so we no longer have that trial version error message showing on the screen. Now, since this control specifically had a problem in the supplied demo, I thought it'd be a good one to demonstrate. Now, this video has been sponsored by Syncfusion. I cover the details of the sponsorship in the Intro to Syncfusion video, as well as how to get the Syncfusion controls for free. I would encourage you to check out that video. If you haven't yet downloaded the controls, or if you want more information about Syncfusion, I'd appreciate it if you use a link in the description. That will let Syncfusion know that people are interested in their products because of this sponsorship, which will encourage them to continue sponsoring community content. All right, let's go over to Visual Studio. We're going to create a new project, but this time we're not going to use the Syncfusion Blazor Template Studio. Instead, we're going to create a Blazor Server app. Just a plain vanilla Blazor Server app, and we're going to call this the PDF Viewer Demo and PDF Viewer Demo app. We'll hit Next. .NET 6, no authentication, and yes to HTTPS, no to Docker. And this is going to be a pretty standard app. There's nothing special here. In fact, we aren't even going to bother with creating a new page. What I'm going to do is actually hijack a page just to, we'll create a new one. I usually hijack the counter page because it's already in the menu and all the rest. But since we are practicing real world stuff, let's go ahead and create a new page for this. So we'll create a new Razor component, which is a Blazor page. And we're going to call this Report Viewer, which this is the, well, let's call it PDF Viewer to not be confusing. PDFs can be the report, but I also want to do a video later that covers reports themselves, custom reports. So I don't want to be confusing there. So PDF Viewer is the page, and we will do the page directive for PDF Viewer, like so. And then we'll come over here to the navigation menu, and let's just copy the counter and then paste it down below. And we're going to say PDF Viewer is the link, and we'll say PDF Viewer. And I'm not even sure what OI to use, so let's just do this. Let's see. Let's do. Is there a report or a box? Box is fine. There we go. So now we have some navigation in place. We have a page in place. Let's just make sure it runs first. We haven't done anything with our anything to do with the actual PDF Viewer yet, but we have a PDF Viewer page that loads up. That just shows that things are working before we start making changes specific to Syncfusion and the PDF Viewer. All right. So the first thing we need to do, now we've got this set up, is we need to add some Nuget packages. Remember I said that you bring in Syncfusion using Nuget Packages, and it's broken apart the various parts of Syncfusion so you can only bring in what you need. So let's right click on dependencies, say manage Nuget Packages, and we're going to search for Syncfusion.Blazor, and let's just say, notice there's a lot in here. There's a lot of stuff in here. And we're going to say .PDF Viewer to see what options we have. Now, this is one of the places we need to have a conversation. So we have the PDF Viewer, but then we also have these three more specific: PDF Viewer Server, .Windows, .Linux, and .OS X. And what this is it's going to say, okay, if you're going to deploy to Windows, sorry, this box pops up. If you're going to deploy to Windows, install the Windows Nuget package. If you're going to deploy to Linux, install the Linux package, and OS X, same thing. So this is going to choose which one you need. or you're going to choose which one you need based upon how you're going to deploy it. So you could deploy to Linux, but we're going to choose Windows. Since we're going to be working with Windows, we'll just choose Windows. Now note that in the dependencies, it says syncfusion.blazor.pdf viewer. It brings in this other package by default. So we're going to choose just this one, and it will bring in the others that it needs. And we're going to back this off to .47. Again, that version is the major release or major supported version versus the weekly updates. So we're going to stick with .47. We're going to hit install. We're going to hit OK, and I accept. And that will install the Nuget package we need. So if we now go and say edit project file, we'll see we have the one included package, which brings in other packages. It just doesn't list it because of the fact that they are required for this package. So there's one package we need, and there's the version we need for it. Okay, next up, we need to go to our program.cs file. And we need to make a change here, and that is that we need to say builder.services.add Syncfusion Blazor. And hit control dot. It doesn't find it. Well, it thinks that I didn't spell it right. I did. I don't know why I was doing that, but we're going to do this, and it's going to say I can't find that. So you can do control dot now, and it says using syncfusion.blazor, which adds this right here, and now it finds it. So you can just type that in manually in case yours is giving you trouble too. But that's the only addition to the program.cs file, is to make sure that those things are added so that this brings in all the Syncfusion Blazor stuff into our dependency injection so that it can pull it in behind the scenes. Now, next up, we're going to modify the layout page. So the layout page, the underscore layout page, this is by default, this is the page that your site uses for the actual HTML setup. Now, we are used to dealing with things like this, where we just have some HTML we're working with. But the reality is this stuff gets stuffed inside of this, right there. So this is the real HTML page. This is the real page, the structure around our code. And so you need this for every web page. You need a head and you need a body, and you have some script files. There's the script file for setting up SignalR, that connection right there from client to server. And there's your site.css for styling. There's Bootstrap. There's where the Bootstrap styling comes in. And there's even a PDF Viewer demo styles.css style sheet as well. So there's various style sheets here you can play around with and change. And this is the standard layout page. We're going to add to it. Now, we're going to add a few different things, and I'm going to copy these from off the screen and bring them in. I'm going to put them in specific spots. So first up, we need to paste in, and I'll paste it here on line 12. We need to paste in this. Now, you can download my code. There's a link in the description for that. But you can also get this from the documentation on their site. And this is using what's called a CDN. Notice the URL says CDN in it. This is a content delivery network. What it is Syncfusion hosts this version of the CSS. Notice it says Bootstrap 5.css. This is not Bootstrap itself. Instead, it's their additions to your code for the Syncfusion controls that are in the style of Bootstrap 5. Now, I have chosen to link to the CDN for Syncfusion because then it offloads some of the work off of my server onto the content delivery network for giving the client the CSS files. It also means that I can very easily change it. If I say, oh, I actually want version 52, I can just change this to 5.2. So this is a very helpful way of going about setting up your connection for that CSS file instead of putting it in your app and then potentially modifying it accidentally. Now, there are two more, but notice first of all, I put this Bootstrap first and then my CSS for Syncfusion. And then I have my site.css. And the reason for that is because of the fact that CSS is cascading. And if you have not worked with CSS before, what happens is there's a hierarchy for what gets applied. Let's just say that you said a button is going to always look like this. Well, you said that up here, you said it here, and you said it here. Well, this last one's going to win because it's the last one in. Now, there's a lot more rules of CSS and the cascade and the hierarchy and all the rest with specificity and all the rest, but that's the very, very basics. So order is important because if I put this one first, then these other two would override this one if there was the same style. So we want our custom styles to override the standard styles. We don't want our standard styles overriding our custom styles. That's why order is important. Okay, next up, we have two different, I'm going to put these on a blank line here. We have two different JavaScript files. Now, normally you put JavaScript files, let's unpin this. Normally you put JavaScript files at the bottom of your body. So if you look down here at the bottom of our body, we have a JavaScript file. Normally you do the same thing. However, there are times when you put JavaScript in the head. And the reason why you would is because this is necessary for rendering your page. And since this is the PDF viewer and the Blazor controls, we're going to need to have it up in the head. So the reason why you put it in the end of our body is because the idea is you can still display the page while the JavaScript is loading. But if the JavaScript is necessary for the page to look right or to work, then you have to put it in the head, which is why we're putting this in the head. So these are the two, again, CDN links to Syncfusion Blazor.min.js. That's the generic JavaScript file for Syncfusion. There's also the more specific PDF viewer minified JavaScript file. So both of those combined are what we need in our layout file, as well as our styling for our Syncfusion controls. So those are the three things we need. Again, this is all in the documentation, although I did catch in one spot, and again, I have to go back and help them fix that. But I did catch in one spot where the documentation said to put this in the hosts file. That is incorrect. That is not the place to put these. We put these in the layout file. So just know if you see host file, it actually probably means layout file. But again, follow what I did and you should have success. So that is the layout file. Now, next up, what we need to do is we need to come over and let's pin this back up. We come back over to the PDF viewer page. Let's do a little bit of work here. Let's just put a space there. And in here, we're going to have a couple of using statements. So using syncfusion.blazor and using syncfusion.blazor.pdf viewer server. Now we have that in place. Let's create a div here, and we'll say class equal to control section. And inside here, we're going to say SF PDF viewer server. And we're going to say document path. Now, you do not have to give it a document path. What the document path is going to do is it's going to load the document on start of the page. It's going to load the document in the viewer, which may seem like what you want to do. It probably is. But there's also a case for saying we don't have a PDF already preloaded. We're going to allow the user to load whatever PDF they want. We could do that as well. But for us, we're going to say document path equals, and we'll say path, which we haven't created yet. Now, it asks for a height, which we'll give it for the demo purposes or for this purposes, but we probably style this with CSS instead. I'm going to say 100% for the width, like so. And we want to make sure we have a closing tag on that. Okay, so there is the full control. We don't have to put anything inside here. That's it. The SF for Syncfusion PDF Viewer Server. For the code, the only thing we need is a private string. And we'll say path equal to, and we're going to give it a path. I'm going to create an absolute path, and I'm going to use the @ symbol in front, which stands for string literal, means that I can say :/ like that. Normally that slash is an escape character. But by putting the @ symbol in front or the string literal character in front, it ignores it because it says, no, it's literally the string you want, which allows me to just copy a path. I should probably just copy this, but Blazor succinctly.pdf. Now download this so that we can open up a PDF file. That should be it. Now let's build this, make sure it builds. It's always a good step. It does build. And we're going to ignore IntelliCode for now. And we're going to run this. And we get to the PDF viewer. We get the error message that says, hey, we've not registered this yet. We're going to take care of that. But notice that we have a PDF viewer. There's our PDF. And it happens to be the PDF from Syncfusion about Blazor. Now you can expand this page. Notice that since we said 100%, it's 100% width, but it's only at 640 pixels high. Notice also we can say open file and open a different PDF if we want. We can also page through it. There's our last page and so on. And we can print it or download the file. So if you want a copy of this PDF, you could just say download and get it on your computer. All right. Now, with that, you can turn these things off. So you can say, I don't want to let my users do this. I just want to show them a PDF. But they could still probably get this if they tried. But this way, it's a really nice way of showing them the PDF without making them download it and then open it. So that is the PDF viewer for Syncfusion. And that's how you put it into a document. Now we're not quite done yet because we have that warning message that's popping up. So let's see how to fix that. Now, to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to bring up the account, my account at Syncfusion. So let's leave this window open. We're going to go to syncfusion.com and we're going to go to my account and say my dashboard. Now I want to show you something here while we're here. If you have support, you can view tickets and view the support tickets you have. And notice that I have a ticket that was created and last applied in 2013. So that is, as of this recording, about 9 years ago. I've been using Syncfusion that long. Now, I only have one ticket because I haven't had a lot of need to create tickets, but this was an icon request that they actually put into the Metro Studio. Also notice that when I mentioned the Metro Studio, I wanted a RAM icon. I was using Metro Studio version 2. So it's in here somewhere, but I mentioned the fact that I'm using version 2 of Metro Studio, and now, there you go, version 2.0.1.2. We're now on version 5. So it's been a while, but just goes to show that I've used this for a very long time and have recommended it a lot. Okay, licensing and downloads and keys. In here, again, I have an older version that has expired from 2013, but in my current version, I can say get license key. So I can click this, I can select which platforms I want to use this license key for. Now, for me, I can just say Blazor, and that's it. And then which version. Notice that the version 4.7 is the regular version. Everything else is a weekly release. So you can see Service Pack release, regular release, Service Pack release, regular release, and so on. And these are weeklies. And then you can give a project name if you want and say get license key. This will give you a text string, which I'm not going to show you. You can't have my key, but this will give you a text string to use in your document or your project. So how do you use that in your project? Well, I'm going to tell you. Let's go over to program.cs. And in here, after we have this build right here, we're going to say syncfusion.licensing.syncfusion license provider.register license. And inside here, let's put in the next line because otherwise it's going to get too long. I'll actually put a line right here. And we're going to say app dot, and here's what it's expecting: a string like this. So let's put this in the next line too. So it's expecting a string like this, but that's not what we want to do. We don't want to put just a magic string in here. We also don't want to have our key right in our source code because that would be problematic. That would be giving our key away if we have it on GitHub or in our source control. Anyone can see our key. It's just not a great solution. So what do? Well, you pull it from your configuration, but we still don't want it in app settings.json. And this is where, if you followed my dependency injection course and my app settings course, app settings course, not dependency injection. So if you follow my app settings course, you'll know how to do this. We're going to say app.configuration. You see up here, we've built the app. We've been built. So we have this app variable. So you see app.configuration.get value. And it's a string value. And we're going to ask for license key. Now, whoops, I added a semicolon I shouldn't have. So where is this license key? Well, it's not in our settings yet. In fact, if you run this, it's not going to find this value. So we're going to put this, but not into our app settings.json. We're not putting it here. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to right click on our project and say manage user secrets. Now, again, if you don't know what user secrets are, they are a way to have something on your computer that's not in source control. This way you can have your local computer's SQL connection string and your local computer's passwords and maybe your login in password for things that need credentials, or in this case, the credentials for our Syncfusion that we don't want put in source control. So we say license key, and then we paste it in. I'm not going to paste it in because, again, I'm not giving you my key, but I'm going to do this off screen, close it out, and then talk more about this. Okay, so where is that user secrets.json or secrets.json? That file is in a different spot in my personal account on my computer. It is not in the same folder path as the rest of my project, which means it is not going to source control. So why do we use this? Because it doesn't go in source control and it's personalized to me. Everyone can have their own and it will work for them differently for each of us. Now, we don't have a value in app settings.json, but essentially this is like saying license key here. But the difference is we don't want to pull a value from here. We want to pull it from somewhere else. So we don't even have to have this because of the way that app settings works in C# projects in .NET Core and .NET 6 and beyond. The way it works is it first looks for the file in app settings.json, and then it sees that there's an override. It starts the other way around, I think, where it finds the first setting necessary. So it looks in your command line, it looks in secrets.json, it finds it there, it uses that. But then if it didn't find it there, it would look in app settings.development.json. If it didn't find it there, it would look in app settings.json. So it's kind of a fallback thing where it looks for it in different spots and has a priority list of what goes first, which means that when you deploy this, you could put into Key Vault or into your Azure Web Apps configuration settings, you could put that string that represents the license key, and it would override what you have in your project, which your project doesn't have anything for that value, but this would allow your license to be used on Azure Web Apps without having to put anything into your code or give anybody access to that string. So with that, again, we can go into a lot more detail, but I cover all that in my app settings. I cover it on app settings video, as well as my app settings course on IamTimCorey.com. So there's a lot more I've covered with it, but that should be enough. That's where the license key comes from. So now if we run this again, we should not get that red warning bar saying that this is licensed. So if you go to the PDF viewer, no red warning bar, because it's officially and properly licensed to use the controls from Syncfusion. So that's how we'd set up our page to use the proper control for PDF viewer. That's how we actually use PDF viewer. Notice it actually works this time instead of what the demo didn't do. We also have set up our licensing and how that works with our application. And we've seen how to properly configure it for the real world, not just for a demo, so that we don't give away our security with our keys and we don't put in too much stuff. I have seen suggestions, just so you know, there is a Nuget package. If you go back to Nuget Packages and say Syncfusion.Blazor, there is a Syncfusion.Blazor package with everything. All right. I don't like doing that. I like having the more specific version. Okay. And if we look at what it depends on, it does not say Syncfusion.Blazor because it doesn't need all that stuff. It just needs this one control. That's why I love having it all broken out into various Nuget packages. We only get what we need. Now, this does need memory caching. It does need ASP.NET Core Windows, and it does need the PDF viewer, the root viewer. But it doesn't need a ton of extras. It only takes what it needs, which means our project is as small as possible. So that's how you set up a project, that maybe an existing project or a new project, to use these controls in the real world, not just the demo template that gets created for us to look at how things work. All right. Thanks for watching. Again, thanks to Syncfusion for sponsoring these videos. I hope you liked them. Let me know down in the comments if there was something that confused you, or if there's some other controls that are confusing you that you might want to see in the future. As always, I am Tim Corey.